Welcome to RSA Conference 2023. We're here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview was sponsored by VMware Carbon Black. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me for this interview is Jason Rolleston, VP and GM of VMware Carbon Black.
Yep.
And welcome, Jason. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks to have you. Great to be here. It's been an exciting week.
And yeah, good conversation here. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. But let's start off with what CISOs are focused on.
Yeah, you know, I was trying to think of like what's new and different, and I think there's almost what's old is new again. I feel like the cloud has definitely come up and is picking up more cloud security, container security, modern apps. But a lot of it, I think, is basics. It's continuing to be focused on detection, response. A lot about how to get the most out of your teams and most out of your investment. So it's in many ways, you know, staying focused. I think we tend to gravitate to the new and the shiny, but a lot of what the CISOs are the same stuff. Manage risk, get stuff done. You know.
Yeah, we call them basics, but they're not easy.
No,
that's the thing. That's the problem.
No, not at all. Right.
Yeah. So what are some of these things that you're hearing from CISOs that they're really focused on, these problems, you know, especially with the market currently? Yeah. You know, a lot of companies have had layoffs.
Yeah.
So clearly they're dealing with talent acquisition and retention, things like that. What other things?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's budget pressure that I'm hearing out of people I haven't heard in a while. It's not necessarily now. Sometimes it's future. They're expecting pressure. You know, certainly continue to manage the team and talent. Talent's always a challenge in this stuff. And then I think how you help that talent do the most. I mean, it starts to get across to the experience and the tools they're given.
Make sure they're effective and efficient.
Yeah, how can you get as much out of them and make sure their time's not being wasted on kind of routine things, and you know, free yourself up to take on some of the new risks, the new challenges. People are facing much more advanced attacks. I mean, I think one of the things we've seen with the rise of ransomware not just being an event at the end when you encrypt, it's really the last thing they do. It's the whole attack up to then, the double extortion. Yeah. People who haven't faced advanced attacks are now having to deal with advanced attacks, and that's putting some new requirements into their space. So.
Well, and again, talking about basics, a lot of people can't detect the basic things.
No.
You know, when I look at a ransomware, you know, how ransomware goes down, it looks like a pretty typical pen test that we've been having for 20 years. Yeah. You know, up until that, you know, the ransomware payload step, which is very modular and can change. So it's hard to prepare for that. But really, those 17 steps before the ransomware, why aren't we detecting that?
You know, look, I think a lot of organizations just didn't have to worry about this kind of threat. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of it was the security through obscurity. There was no reason to go at some of these smaller shops or these different places. So they could get away with basics, the AV, some of these things, and say, look, you know, I'm good enough. I'm not worried about virus. I'll go okay. But I think the economic incentive, right, the economic driver for ransomware now bringing these more sophisticated attacks down to everybody is kind of, you've got to do more. People got to look inside, and then you get the zero trust mentality. People are generally inside somewhere. How do you find them? How do you identify them? That's a big part of what we have been focusing on with our efforts, really, this idea of how you identify lateral movement and find those folks who are already inside.
Yeah, and you know, it used to be, you know, the excuse used to be, we don't have PII, we don't have payment data, like we don't have anything attackers would want. And even back in the day, we would see cases where people would come in, BEC-style scams, you know, 10, 15 years ago. We'd ask people, do you have money in the bank? Yeah. Ultimately, that's what they're after. Yeah. And they prefer that to having to, you know, buy iPhones with stolen credit card and have to launder and fence that.
Way simpler.
And tumble all that, you know, that data.
No, way simpler. Cleaner way to get the money out, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so obviously, you know, CISOs, one of the primary roles is to reduce risk. Yep. You know, but they need these staffs, you know, detection and response is still very human dependent. You know, I think, I'm sure you've had 1,000 conversations about ChatGPT and how it can, you know, maybe increase some of the automation here, increase that efficiency and that efficacy per head count maybe, and maybe we'll see that in the near years. But for now, still have to attract and acquire talent.
Yeah, I think you do. I think you also have to find ways to make the tools, the technology approachable to that talent, and you find ways to have more and more of the work that's manual, that's heavy lift, done by tech, right? So what can we do to see more, stop more attacks, provide the information to you in ways that you can consume, and really help that process along, right? Because you're only going to have so many people in the end. So again, how do you get the most out of them?
And we still have a gap between the time that the attackers need to get what they want and to get to their goal versus us detecting them and having an opportunity to contain, eradicate, get them out of the environment. So that's what is that gap like nowadays? Is it still measured in days?
It depends who you ask. There are organizations who will tell you they got it in minutes and this, that, and the other. But I think, look, it's some things you're getting quick. I always think of these threats across the spectrum. There's a certain set of things you detect in seconds. There are things you detect in minutes and hours, and there are things that you detect in days and weeks and months.
Yeah.
Averages are, and I think probably in the days is probably what you would see across the company.
And you have to have some response. Like detecting is only half the battle.
Yeah.
Without, if your response capability is entirely manual, that's maybe not going to help you.
No, I mean, look, I think finding stuff fast is a matter. It's part of why all the hubbub around XDR and this and that of how we get better at detecting, identify it. I think R gets overlooked in some cases. It's a big part of it. Is how do I actually go through and investigate more rapidly, and then what can I do about it to start hiving off and protecting myself and remediating. The whole picture matters. It's a big thing we've been able to do. I think some really strong at Carbon Black for a long time is provide that whole mix. And a big part of what VMware kind of brings to the table is all these remediation options and working with the network, taking a lot of different steps to kind of secure the environment when you're finding yourself in trouble.
And speaking of XDR, I hear you have a new product.
We do. In some ways, people are like, you're late in space. I think if you're an EDR player, you have to be there. We really wanted to do something thoughtful and kind of do it right. We do. So XDR, I think as you well know, really loosely defined space.
Yes.
Not well understood.
And we need to cover that because people are going to be like, what do you mean? What do you mean when you say XDR?
And it's funny, is I find myself as a real believer in XDR, but a lot of times with customers, I actually say it and then run away from it. And I say that because there's so much uncertainty and confusion, right? So for me, I really think XDR is powerful because EDR was so powerful. It really transformed the way we do a lot of things in the SOC, a lot of things in threat response and incident response.
I would even say it had the potential to be powerful. But we had to enable that potential somehow, and that's kind of how I saw the road to XDR, right? Is unlocking that full potential.
Well, I think it's taking. I mean, EDR did so much. You needed people to do it, but I think it said the approach, security specific telemetry, deep data, important for you don't always catch things, have the forensics, do the investigation. And then you start processing that data. Say, look, if I get analytics and detection against this, I can find things earlier. And it's not just executables; it's evidence of hacking activity. XDR to me says, why aren't we doing that for more stuff? Right? Why we should be doing that for the network? We should be doing that for identity and email and cloud. So it's
extending kind of, beyond.
EDR. It's the same kind of construct of just deep security specific telemetry. I worked a lot in SIM in the past, and SIM, the problem we had was it's a data scavenger. Right, you think of SIM as an analytics tool. It's a data scavenger. The data you collect is thrown off by somebody else. It wasn't built for security. It wasn't built to detect threats. It wasn't really built for anything. It just happens to be logs that are flowing. EDR, we built it. We could actually go in and get the telemetry. We continue to extend what we do. We just added kind of the ability to get authentication events kind of coming off of an endpoint, which gives us kind of visibility in the identity side. And then for us, XDR is kind of bridging network and endpoint. So our entry into this was we took some of the network technology that came from actually an acquisition of LastLine in 2020.
Okay.
So LastLine
was, I forgot about that.
NTA, NDR. They bought that to kind of integrate into NSX and the vSphere environments. We've taken some of that tech and we've actually embedded it into the Carbon Black endpoint.
Okay.
And what that means is we now have an endpoint plus network kind of XDR. It's focused. We're trying to be pretty tight at what we do.
So the network piece is on the host?
Yeah, it's on the endpoint. So this means we have visibility to all network connectivity throughout the environment, no matter where you are. And it's not coming from the network, it's coming from the host. So if you got your laptop in a coffee shop out here, we got you, right? You're seeing all of the east-west traffic. And this is interesting. This is back to that lateral movement and finding people inside. Most people that are doing network monitoring, it's all north-south. They're looking at egress, they're looking at what's coming in and out of my environment. They're not looking inside. They just don't have it. You could, but it's just impractical. It's been hard. Taps, devices, management's been really difficult. So we now have complete visibility of east-west traffic. That data is natively married with the endpoint data. What I mean by that, in a traditional sense, if I'd caught an alert going in and out, I have to connect that. I have to say this IP address, okay, what is that? Is there NAT between it? Is there DHCP tables? Okay, maybe I've gotten to the right device. Now do I have EDR records?
All the context.
To get through that, back to your point around time, takes a lot of time and a lot of work to connect those things, right? And so for us, since every connection is observed on the agent, we see it, we know what process was tied to it, we see all the rest of the activity, we know who it was, who started the process.
Yeah, contextual process tied to it. Like that little bit there is so important.
Oh, and it's just there. Yeah. It's not that you can't get it, but it takes a lot of effort to get back there and some guesswork. So for us, none of that. And it's super easy to turn on. Right? So for us, if you have EDR, you want XDR, it is a feature flag in our console. There's no network configs, there's nothing, and boom, telemetry's coming in, you're seeing it, you're able to combine with all of the deep telemetry we collect on the endpoint. Use all the tools and things you're familiar with. It's just a tremendously strong offer that's making XDR approachable in our mind. I think XDR has been very hard for people because a lot of people come in and say, hey, you got to throw out everything you have. Buy all my stuff. Buy this bunch of things. Change everything you're doing. And we're saying, look, no, you're good. Keep using your SIM. If you're using Carbon Black, you're already there. Great. This is a way to extend and get more value, more detection, telemetry, more information. It adds to what you're already doing. And, you know,
the X and XDR.
Yeah, it just adds it. And
yeah, and the thing that gets me most excited that you said there is I remember being engaged in the very early days, you know, when FireEye kind of introduced this sector, and, you know, we had Last Line and a few other companies come in, and the way that they sold it was so counterintuitive to how you needed the technology. So when I was on the enterprise and we brought in FireEye, you know, one of the things we immediately noticed is, okay, this thing is priced as an appliance. Yeah. You know, at a point to where we can only afford to buy one and put it in our headquarters. Yeah. But that's where I have the least issues and investigations and incidents. Like all my incidents are at these, you know, these stores and retail points where I've got 3 people. I can't afford to put a $250,000 box in a.
And you get the taps and like network. I mean, you know, if you're not doing hairpinning now, and things are going straight up the network, you're missing it. So this combination of seeing everything and back to the lateral movement. If people are in, they're moving around. You have to have visibility of what's going on. You've got to tie that, have the context of what's happening in the endpoint. We think we have something that's just really unique in market.
Even a $1,200 Palo Alto UTM was too expensive to put in in 1,000 locations.
You got to ship it. You got to manage it. You got to keep it up. You got to upgrade it. I mean, I think that's the practicality-wise. The network tap-based approach to this is just unmanageable. It doesn't work. You can't go down it. Technically possible, but nobody does it. We've kind of taken that massively distributed approach. You can do it because at each endpoint it's not massive amount of traffic, and it's just really unique insight. People are super excited. Our partners are kind of over the moon with this. Customers, people are fired up, and we're excited to see it out there.
So is this something that existing customers, if I've already got Carbon Black agents deployed, and it would be the what's the name of it's the detect agent?
It's Carbon Black Cloud is the overall thing.
It's converged now. Yeah. But is this something where I can just I can switch on the licensing and you know the code is already there. I just need to switch it on.
As long as you're up on the kind of the most recent version of the kind of cloud agent, you've done the upgrades, which most people are keeping up on pretty quick. It is just a featured flag, tick on, and you're good and go. And people, it's hot.
Very nice, very low friction. Carbon Black has always been good about that. Like I remember in the days when they started giving out licenses for free for incident responders, just to get Carbon Black out there.
Yeah, let's still do it. We still do it, and it's the depth of what we're doing is just so much in character of who we are. Taking that deepness, completeness of telemetry, and then just extending it out. Just doing more of it, and it's almost kind of getting back to our roots in some ways.
Winning through product strategy. Hey, I like it. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep it simple.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Jason. To find out more about VMware Carbon Black, please visit securityweekly.com/VMware Carbon Black RSAC. And if you can't stick around for the rest of the live stream, or you're catching this afterwards, you can check out securityweekly.com/RSAC to find all of the RSA conference coverage by Cyber Risk Alliance. Thank you again.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.